concept of generosity and giving, they're foundational to our faith, I think. We are practicing really trusting in Him as opposed to trusting in resources, money, or anything else to provide for our needs. And I like to think of it as a bit of a ever-replenishing spring or a river. As we trust in Him and He provides, our gratitude springs out of us, and then it pours out in generosity, that we are generous. And God loves this. I think He loves pouring into us, but He really loves seeing us pour out too. And He pours in not only, I'm not only thinking money or wealth or material things, but health and well-being and blessings on our family and blessings on our children and even blessings on the future generations under us. I think it is like a replenishing river that He just keeps filling up and we keep pouring out. It's not stagnant. The scriptures talk about being a cheerful giver. My father was a great example of that. He was very generous all the time with money, but also with cars and clothing, everything, food. He was always giving stuff away. So early on, I kind of saw the concept of giving as really important, but I may not have always felt that automatic cheerfulness in giving, but I did it out of obedience and love for Jesus, and I knew it was the right thing. But maybe felt a little more like a sacrifice. Now, because of all the years of growing in my relationship with Jesus and seeing Him so faithful, now I really am joyful in my giving. I really just can't wait. Like, I just think, please bring it on, let me give more. I really want to. So I'll just give you an example. So we built our house about 12 years ago, really taxed our resources. A lot of things kind of went wrong. It had to be changed. And so it cost a lot more than we expected. And I had just quit my job because I was going back to school and I was planning on doing the nursing. So I'd taken out a bit of a student loan. And then Andrew got sick after that as well. So anyway, in the midst of that, the community came around us, helped us financially, but supported us in so many ways. And then 12 years later, we've just sold our house and we made more than 100% return on it. So it's just like, I'm so excited to be able to give out of that profit that God has given us. So we're praying and asking the Lord, kind of about direction, what's the best, where we're sowing it, whatever, how much, but it's just exciting. So I do love the challenge of knowing that there's extra money or extra something to give, and to pray and partner with the Holy Spirit to kind of know where He wants to bless. And our concept in our life, as my life, has always been the 10% thing. Out of what comes in out of our gross, we always give 10% of our gross, whatever that is. And then we usually sow seed on top of that as we can or as circumstances allow. And we're always kind of listening to God's prompts about that. And I just find that all exciting. So just as I'm finishing, I was thinking yesterday, so we're packing our house, of course, going a little crazy. So we were packing up some boxes that related to Jenny. And so we adopted our daughter, Jenny, from China 28 years ago. And we had no money. We needed, I think it was $20,000. So we were able to remortgage our house and borrow what we needed for the actual part of our expenses, the flight, the hotels and all that. But the actual other stuff, we had to reach out to the community. So we reached out to friends and family across the nation, not just Christians, but people we knew loved us and we loved. And they came together and provided the money we needed. $18,000, I think it was in the end, that came in, which is just a complete miracle. So I was looking at the list yesterday when I was packing of all the names, and like some people gave $6 or $50 or so. Even small gifts mean a lot. They all go together to add up, and God blesses that. So I came across a quote too that said by the Desert Fathers saying, "It's impossible to think of the spiritual life apart from the loving community of others." So I always feel like with Jenny, it took the whole community to care for us and be generous in order for us to have her. And I mean, what a blessing she is. So it is a great concept and a really important concept in our faith journey that sometimes it takes a while to learn, but like try it and see, because it's amazing how he will bless you.
So when I was was a little girl, my parents took me to church at another congregation. And so I've always known about giving back to the Lord, because they were very faithful in giving and teaching us about the Lord. And I got older and started making my own money. It wasn't so easy for me to tithe, because I didn't really understand the concept of tithing. But when I came to SCC and I was doing a Bible study with my mom, tithing came up. And so I had really gotten into, what does this all look like and what does it mean? So I always knew that I wanted to give back to God somehow with my physical money. And so when Dawn and I first got married, I was walking with the Lord, but Dawn wasn't at this point. And so when I wasn't working, we didn't have a lot of money. And so what we did have, I would squirrel a little bit away so I could go to church and give that little bit. And so then when Dawn started coming to church as well and became a believer, we sat under a really great teaching by Clive Pick, and I'll let him take the story from there.
I was a stranger to the amount of giving. I grew up in a different church with my family, and to give a small amount was a huge amount, and not understanding what this 10% was. But Clive actually mentioned something about the open heaven. The more you give, the more heaven is open, and the more it flows back down. But I was kind of foreign to the 10% thing. And when we started discussing the 10% in relation to tithing, so he said, well, he made sense. When he presented a challenge to everybody who was there, he said, try it. Just for a short period of time, just try it and see what happens. So I said, okay, I'm not opposed to it. So Joy and I talked about it, and he said, well, okay, well, let's try it for a little while. So we had discussions. Okay, well, our pay or our take-in amount for each paycheck was this amount, so we'd take 10% right off the top, and we'd put that in the offering plate. I mean, at that point in time, we were literally check to check. So I mean, to give out 10% right off the top was cutting into a lot of stuff. So we tried it, and our bottom line didn't seem to go below what we didn't already have. So I said, well, this is kind of interesting. And as we got more and more into it, we didn't stop at that challenge. We just kept it going. But then it opened the question and said, okay, well, what is 10%? 10% of what? I said, if I make X amount, or we take in this much money this month or this week or paycheck, after Caesar's got all his, what's left over, is that the 10%? Or should we be giving 10% off the top before we give to everyone else? So we had a good conversation about that. And it was a little scary, because I mean, it was a tremendous increase in the amount. That 10% became greater, but it was still 10%. So we said, well, let's give it a try. Let's try it. So we tried doing 10% of our gross. Not to say that it was easy by any stretch of the means, but when I look back, it seemed that we always had more than we did before we even started tithing, even though we had less. And it didn't seem to really calculate. I'm a numbers guy. I love figuring things out, but it just didn't seem to make sense. So, but we never lacked. Now it's kind of a personal challenge with us, because at the end of the year, I calculate that this is how much we made. And I look at our givings, and I said, if it doesn't equal, there's a check going out. But it's always been much more than the 10. But it's going into other areas as well. And I'm not talking that this is like all taxable. There's a lot of times that there's a sliding of some money in somebody's chair or something. So, and that's a blast to see. What is this? I was like, oh, look at you! Look what you found. So it's kind of fun to see the expression on people's face when they have no idea where these little blessings come from. We've received them, and it's a whole lot of fun to give it out too.
It sure is. Even when Dawn has done some favors for people, And he doesn't ever ask for a gift or anything. But sometimes there's people that will stop at our door and say, can you just please give this to Dawn? And just this past Christmas, it was so much fun. This gentleman came to the door and said, this is just a gift for Dawn. Can you please give it to him? Maybe you guys can go out for supper or something. And I said, well, I have something for you. And he said, you do? You do not. And I said, I do. Hang on 1 minute, please. And I ran to the basement, and I just happened to have a package of cookies that I had made the day before in the deep freeze. So I brought them up and gave them to him, and he was ecstatic. And it was just so much fun to do that kind of thing, you know, to use the gifts that God has given us and to have things on hand just to bless other people. It's just so much fun.